Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, before we go to the Shadowlands and leave Azeroth behind for a while, I thought that it was a good time to take a look around and to see how much potential there still is in our planet. So, today, let's peer through the mists and let's see exactly what is going on the other side of Azeroth with all of these new secret Titan facilities that we now sort of know are confirmed to exist, what islands and cultures are left to explore, and how we, the living, could have a pretty major effect on the Shadowlands and maybe even hint at a future Titan plan for the lot of us. This is going to be quite a fun video. And, well, for you, well, it's a new month, and that means new loot on Patreon. And this month is, it's a real chonker. First up, we have the Druid class pin. It is bloody gorgeous. It's great. Every time we like crack open the pack of these when they come in, I'm always surprised by just how well they turn out. So we've got that. We've then got the main art pack, which is, of course, inspired by the Great Plains aesthetic of the Taurens, and also has got this really gorgeous little sticker. And also, there is a special for this month. Special that I so deftly dropped. Yeah, so here we go. We are delving into Afterlives. Now, this month, it's the more gothic pieces. One light, one dark, and all I can say is just wait for our upcoming months on Roman and Norse afterlives, and also a bit of Irish as well. It should be quite exciting. So okay, that's Patreon. I think our art team has nailed it this month, and all that will be yours if you're patroned for June at the loot tier, and that is billed at the start of July. Of course, you'll also get access to the daily briefing every single weekday for the gaming news, vlogs from me, and early access to content. So patrons, that's what you're getting. Thank you for your support. It is literally why I am now looking at how we can grow the team so we can make more content and be stronger for Shadowlands launch. So there's that, and with that said, let's get into the video. The Maiden of Vitality in the Chamber of Heart actually mentioned two Titan facilities that we had previously not heard of, with there potentially actually being between 3 and 7 further facilities. A pretty wild thing for a single voice line. Now, the two mentioned are Uldaz and Uldoris. We'll start with these locations, as I'm pretty certain we are going to find a reason to eventually visit them. So, Uldoris is a bit more straightforward. If you actually examine the name itself, well, first, there is Uld. Now, Bran Bronzebeard believes that that means city. And then, of course, there's Orus, O-R-U-S. Now, where have we heard that nomenclature before? It's obvious. Antorus. Ant, Orus. Now, when we looked into it, Ant is actually ancient Greek for anti, and we also know that Antorus was described as the burning throne, the seat of Sargeras. So, if you put those things together, what do you have? Anti-throne? Something like that. As such, then Uldoris would translate to City of the Throne, or Throne City. Uldoris, the Throne City, and Antorus, the Anti-Throne City. Could it perhaps be maybe the seat of Azeroth, the World Soul herself? I mean, Antorus is said to be located at the core of Argus, which, yes, could give us a bit of a hint as to the location of Uldoris, the Titan facility on Azeroth that we know exists, but we don't really know what it is or where it is. There is just this interesting parallel in the naming between Uldoris and Antorus. Then we've got Uldaz, the other one that was mentioned, and it's a bit harder to figure out. I mean, when we talked about it in the office, we figured it sounded pretty dwarven in nature. There's not really that much to go on, so we'll just take a look at some possible locations. First up, Lordaeron has a suspicious lack of major Titan facilities, even though the region does have history with the Titans. Of course, Tyr's Fall, that's the resting place of Tyr. Now, there was a bit of a facility in there, right, for the Cathaxi General, but you know, nothing that is a full Titan city complex like what we'd expect from somewhere called Uldaz. So that could be the location of something. Could be, but then I think there's actually something potentially a bit more spicy. So there's the Path of the Titans, right, in Northrend, and that leads from Ulduar, and then it sinks into the frozen oceans of Northrend. Now, it passes the Strand of the Ancients battleground, which, during the Wrath of the Lich King beta, was not called that. It was actually named the Sands of Ulduran, and it has not since been mentioned like that. So the point here is that the Path of the Titans seemingly goes somewhere, right? Seemingly out to the Maelstrom, but of course, you know, the Maelstrom, well, that was ordered into the Wealth of eternity long before it was the Maelstrom, so that could actually serve as the perfect location for some sort of Titan, like, city, you know, something going on there. Now, of course, one of the most enduring mysteries of Azeroth is what is going on at the other side of Azeroth, and maybe that's where one of these Titan facilities is. Now, we know that that area has been intentionally obscured, so could that mean a Titan facility of huge importance could actually be there? Well, to answer that, let's examine what we actually know. Another potential thing for Uldaz, if we are going to go in the more like dwarf-like direction, is that it could actually be that there's something more to the old city of Ironforge, right? That there's actually more secrets down there, or that just in general there are dwarven secrets that perhaps even now the modern dwarves aren't even aware of. We've recently engaged with the idea of a post-Shadowlands time skip in one of our speculation videos, and we essentially posited, right, that in our absence, that a great peace would come over Azeroth. Who's to say that with us going into the Shadowlands and maybe time being a bit weird, or even just the normal 2-year gap, that say the likes of Magni and Bran maybe sail off, do some adventuring, maybe try to go to the Forbidding Sea and see what's up. What would they find if they went there? Well, we already said in this video that it could be a possible Titan facility location based off what the Maiden said. But what evidence do we actually have for something being there? Well, number one, ships that venture in those directions never return. Now, this could imply a system put in place to stop visitors from getting there, or stopping them from ever returning. I mean, that much seems obvious. Second, there's the mists. As viewed from Argus or from the Vindicar, the rear parts of Azeroth seem to be shrouded in these mists. And this is not unlike Pandaria, which was unknown to our peoples until very, very recently indeed. Now, its mists came from Shauha's sacrifice, which was facilitated by the power of Shilun, which was a staff blessed by the wild god Zhuen. Of course, a wild god born from the Keeper Freya's work in ordering Azeroth. So that could maybe hint at a titanic nature of these mists, or whatever is shrouding the rear of Azeroth from us. Then also, Chronicle claims that ancient Kalimdor was the largest continent on the planet. But if Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms are all, you know, originally the same mega-continent, what if there was another continent, right? It just says the largest continent. That sort of implies there could be others. At this stage, I really do think we know that something is out there based on the nature of, like, you know, ships going and never returning. I think there's definitely something there. There's definitely something messing up those ships. It's not like it's going to be bad weather, because at the end of the day, if Blizzard could use the rear of Azeroth for content, are they really going to just say, oh yeah, you know, real choppy oceans, the ships all just sink? That would be a pretty boring explanation, and I think that means there's almost something definitely there for us to explore. First up, ogres. I mean, have you ever wondered why in Lordaeron there were no ogres in the internment camps, but there was loads of ogres in Kalimdor? Well, the reason there is because when the Second War ended, the ogres, who canonically are actually very capable shipbuilders, somehow, they actually got into their juggernaut ships and they just sailed away. Now, some landed on Kalimdor. We recently have seen that some landed on Exile's Reach, as seen in Shadowlands. Some may, though, have kept on sailing, and to actually have found some sort of distant shore without pesky humans or orc clans to hold them back. In which case, yes, there could just be an ogre empire. Then next, of course, there's the Naga, and although Ashara is probably off in the cosmos somewhere based on the last thing she said to us, well, we've certainly not seen the last of her people, right? And with the Naga's proven dominance over the oceans, I think nobody is better to go to the rear of Azeroth and see what's up. So maybe there will be entire coasts of a continent packed with Murloc villages and Naga war camps. Then finally, as another idea, we've got everybody who ever sailed the Forbidding Seas or the Veiled Seas, right? We know that elven mariners did attempt that, and of course humans normally pretty stupidly just try everything that they can and get themselves killed, so they could have actually made it, right? So we could have these pockets of recognizable civilizations, and that really brings us to the reason why Blizzard would ever want to take us to the rear of Azeroth. New villains, new dungeons, new classes, new everything, totally new, right? Disconnected, basically, from existing lore. It would be an opportunity to give players something totally new without, you know, bringing us to space or making us confront the awesome power of the cosmos or some crazy new existential thing. And that really brings us to, I'd say, the brink of what's possible for speculation, because really, beyond that, the back of Azeroth, right, that will have never before seen creatures and cultures. It could easily house a third continent, the size size of the Eastern Kingdoms. New Titan facilities, as we covered, and new types of creatures and cultures, right? A new type of elf, maybe humans from a culture that's not just the generic American fantasy that really did sort of define the original humans of the Warcraft universe. There could be so much more there, and I think the Rear of Azeroth is the perfect way for Blizzard to actually do that. Going back into the realms of the more firmly known, though, we still do have many islands to visit, and I think it's telling that we did not visit some of the bigger named islands in Battle for Azeroth. So, as an example, Darkspear Island, that's one. We had assumed it lost to the ocean, but we actually now know that that is not the case. So that's one place. Then there's Tel Abyme. Now, we know that Tel Abyme has got an incredibly efficient process for the cultivation and distribution of bananas, and that does actually suggest that there's a degree of civilization there, right? Somebody's running that company, so who knows, right, what we would actually find if we went there. Then there's also Plunder Isle. That is, of course, home to the Bloodsail Buccaneers. It also may have a native troll population, as Hiji and Plunder Isle are basically in the same location in different maps, which leads us to think that Hiji is actually just the island's original name. So there's that place as well. Then perhaps the place at the forefront of our minds right now is the Dragon Isles. Now, we saw some Dragonflight activity, of course, in patch 8.3, with the aspects, you know, coming together and, I guess, just not being on holiday anymore, actually renewing their purpose in Azeroth. Well, we're surely then going to see the Dragon Isles within the next couple of expansions, right? Now that the dragons are back, especially given how the Dragon Isles seem to be on the cards for BFA, with them being the center of Rathian's research as of 8.0, but then Rathian seemingly pivoting halfway through the expansion and the Dragon Isles never being mentioned again. Then we've got the island of Bellular, actually from Warcraft 2. And I bring this up because really a few things I noticed in Ardenweald and a bit of a connection. So in Irish mythology, Balor, the evil eye, was king of the Fomorians. Now they are a sort of evil race of creatures from under the seas in Irish mythology. So you've got an island in Azeroth that is called Balor, and a realm of the Shadowlands that is based in many parts of Irish mythology. Now, this connection could be even more direct, though, because, well, I mean, look, the game has always had furbolgs and banshees, which are both from Irish myth, but now with the Night Fae, Blizzard, they truly have raided the Irish cultural cupboard. There are a number of really big linguistic connections, including Tyrnus Scythe, the Tiernan, Spriggans, Boggarts. That's all stuff that's tying back into Irish myth. And further to that, the Winter Queen, Ardenweald's ruler, well, the Winter Queen is straight out of Irish folklore. We'll do a full rundown of the connections at a later date, probably, but there are some very immediate questions here. Now, if Sire Denathrius built Revendreth in the image of Nathraza, right, and then it was the Winter Queen who created Ardenweald, then where did she get that cultural inspiration from? Is it directly straight from the Emerald Dream? Is it from a different planet entirely? Or is there maybe a connection to this island of Balor, a place named after the King of the Fomorians from Irish myth? So yeah, okay, look, this bit might be a little bit self-indulgent, but I think you can see there's a whole bunch of connections here, and like, trust me, the Ardenweald stuff is very clearly based with Irish mythology. You know, it was initially quite hard to put this list together because so many of the locations that, like, we've always wanted to visit, well, they had been explored, right? And for a lot of places, it often felt like, honestly, a letdown for me because there was so little actual content in them, but that could be a good thing in the long run, right? You've got Nazjatar. I mean, there wasn't much story there. It felt like a tiny snippet of something that could have been far greater. And then there was Ny'alotha. I mean, think about it, right? Thematically, the Ny'alotha that we visited was far more like N'Zoth's idealized vision of Azeroth. I think it was by no means the planet-consuming city of dreams that we had came to expect. Basically, there was no doubt in my mind that the Void Lords will make another go on Azeroth, that they'll try to get us again. And in this scenario, the Cyclopean, like, architecture of Ny'alotha, that could be revisited in a far more fleshed out way, like maybe, such that we could actually go there and it just not be just a raid. I mean, let's be real, Ny'alotha was a humongous missed opportunity, and it was clearly a cut down version of something far greater in concept. Now, this is something that Blizzard could actually do again and do properly. Now, there's also the idea of Blizzard just revisiting stuff, and Azul Narub is a great example there, where Blizzard's original vision of that was cut because of production constraints. It was initially going to be its whole own zone. Now, that doesn't change how, like, Azul Narub would be a cool place to go, right? And there's, like, loads of ways that the modern narrative could make that happen. So, while there are a bunch of, you know, Titan facilities that have recently been name-dropped but are completely unknown, and there are islands and things like that, there is also the idea of us going back to things that we already know in a bit of a revamped way. Now, the time skip speculation that we did could totally be one way to do that, but then there's places that could find just a renewed significance in the lore, like Azul Narub, that could conveniently tie into, you know, places that Blizzard, like, would have wanted to explore anyway, right? That's the case with Azul Narub. Sadly, though, it was something they had to cut from Wrath of the Lich King. So there we go. It is fun to speculate during these inter-expansion periods, but recent speculation has circled increasingly, I think, around the problem of relevance, at least for us, and how much people can actually care about this stuff. Blizzard is beginning to run out of truly recognizable locations from their own lore, like places that people have got an emotional attachment to. Now, this is a clear problem that they will have to contend with, so it could be very interesting to see just how Blizzard, like, expand that list of unknown locations. The 2 new Titan facilities are a very recent example, but the Shadowlands, I mean, that feels like a truly unknown frontier, right? With the rest of the cosmos being a step further, even going past that. So there's a lot there, and on that cosmic thing, stay tuned, because we're going to be bringing you a whole bunch of cosmic locations that we could very well visit in an upcoming video, and it does turn out that there is quite a bit up there indeed. So, there you go, that's it for this video. Do be sure to let me know what you would actually like to see in terms of new locations on Azeroth and what ideas you would have. So, let me know. You can check out our other lore content on the channel, and thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.